When you walked away, you didn't do it out of anger or spite. You did it because you finally understood that silence can speak louder than anything you could ever say. And whether she admits it or not, that silence hit her harder than any words ever could. The moment you stopped explaining yourself, stopped defending your intentions, and stopped showing up to fix everything, she was forced to sit alone with the reality she had been avoiding. What she didn't expect was how much the absence of your presence would echo inside her life. She thought walking away was something you would never do. She believed your patience was infinite, your energy unshakable, and your willingness to give her the benefit of the doubt everlasting. But when you removed yourself, you disrupted the entire emotional balance she relied on. Silence has a way of stripping away illusions. It takes away the noise, the excuses, the distractions, leaving only truth behind, and that truth can be uncomfortable. She started to realize that the comfort, validation, and attention she received from you weren't guaranteed. Without your message popping up, without your voice grounding her, without your presence making everything feel stable, she was left to face the part of herself she had been hiding, the part that pushed you away, took you for granted, or believed you'd chase her regardless of how she treated you. Your silence created a mirror, and in that mirror, she began to see her own patterns clearly. The things she used to dismiss suddenly felt heavier. The decisions she made without thinking now felt like mistakes. She replayed conversations, reconsidered moments, and questioned why she didn't value you more when she had the chance. Not because you tried to teach her a lesson, but because silence gave her the space to reflect in a way your presence never could. Walking away forced her to confront the emotional reality she used to avoid. It wasn't that you ruined her by leaving. It's that your absence revealed the hole your presence once filled. It showed her the difference between losing attention and losing someone who genuinely cared, and that difference is what shakes a person at their core. She might try to act unbothered, she might pretend nothing has changed, but deep down she feels the shift. She feels that the emotional security she expected from you is no longer there, and that unsettles her in ways she didn't anticipate. Your silence made her question the parts of herself she never wanted to face. It made her confront what she did, what she said, and what she assumed. It made her see that your effort, love, and support were never owed. They were given freely. And once she realized how rare that is, the weight of losing it became something she could no longer ignore. In the end, it wasn't your anger that affected her. It wasn't your words. It wasn't even the goodbye. It was the silence, the quiet, powerful message that said you would no longer participate in something that drained you. And in that silence, she finally understood what you were worth. When you chose to walk away, it wasn't a moment of defeat. It was the first moment where you truly stood in your own strength. People often confuse silence with weakness, but in reality, silence is a threshold only the emotionally disciplined can cross. By stepping back, you reclaimed the power that had slowly been slipping away every time you tried to fix things, every time you over-explained yourself, and every time you showed up for someone who wasn't showing up for you. Walking away was not an act of giving up. It was an act of coming back to yourself. It was the moment you realized that your peace, your dignity, and your emotional stability were worth more than chasing someone who didn't value them. When you stopped trying to force clarity, you allowed clarity to come naturally. When you stopped reacting, you stopped feeding the drama. When you stepped out of the chaos, you stepped into a space of control. That quiet, composed distance wasn't you running. It was you choosing not to participate in something that no longer aligned with who you were becoming. It was you saying, "I deserve better," not out of pride, but out of self-respect. Your silence changed the entire dynamic. She was used to you being available, being responsive, being emotionally invested. She expected you to be the one who always tried to make things work, even when she wasn't matching your effort. But your withdrawal created a shift she couldn't ignore. When the predictable stops being predictable, it forces people to confront their own behavior. She realized that your attention wasn't a guarantee, and that realization often hits harder than any argument ever could. Your silence also restored your emotional balance. Before, you might have felt anxious, overthinking everything, constantly trying to keep the connection alive. But when you walked away, you gave yourself room to breathe. You allowed your mind and heart to settle. You stopped giving your power away in the form of constant effort, and in doing so, you placed yourself back in a position of psychological strength, calm, composed, and centered. This inner stability is what truly disrupts the old pattern. When someone sees that you're not desperate, not begging, not trying to win them back, it sends a message far louder than words. You are no longer emotionally dependent on the situation. And that's when people start to reevaluate everything. Your silence shows emotional resilience. It shows maturity. It shows an ability to walk away when your boundaries are crossed, and that is deeply unsettling to anyone who thought they had control over your reactions. By choosing silence, you didn't punish her, you protected yourself, you didn't try to make her feel anything, you simply refused to lose yourself. That decision, that inner shift, is what reclaimed your power. Because when a man can walk away calmly, with dignity and self-respect, he becomes someone who cannot be manipulated, taken for granted, or emotionally controlled. Your silence didn't just change the situation, it changed you. And that change is what makes all the difference. She never thought your absence would hit her the way it has. In her mind, you were always going to be there, always willing to talk, always willing to understand, always willing to try again no matter how complicated things became. She assumed your patience was endless, that your loyalty was automatic, and that your care was something she could rely on without ever truly appreciating it. But when you finally walked away and went silent, something inside her shifted. It wasn't just that you were gone. It was the weight of what your presence used to mean that started pressing down on her. At first, she might have convinced herself it didn't matter. She might have pretended she was fine. She might have told her friends she's moving on, that she's unbothered, that she doesn't need you. But pride has a funny way of masking pain, and silence has a way of breaking through every mask a person tries to wear. With time, as the days passed without your name lighting up her phone, the reality sank in. You were really gone. You weren't waiting, you weren't chasing, you weren't checking in. The emotional safety net she used to count on had vanished. That's when the regret begins. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that creeps in during the moments she least expects it. She starts replaying conversations, thinking about things she said or did, wondering why she didn't value you when you were right there giving her everything you had. She remembers the stability, the reassurance, the consistency you brought. She realizes how rare it was. And that's when the guilt settles in, not because you left, but because she sees clearly that she pushed away someone who genuinely cared. Your silence became a contrast. It highlighted the difference between how you treated her and how others treat her. Maybe other people still give her attention, but it's not the same. It doesn't carry the depth, the warmth, or the sincerity that yours did. And that comparison is what really begins to hit her. She starts to notice the void, an emotional emptiness she didn't feel before. She didn't expect missing you to feel so heavy. She didn't expect the loss to echo the way it does. She begins to feel the weight of what she lost, not because you punished her, but because reality is finally catching up. Losing attention is easy to recover from. Losing a connection with someone who genuinely saw her, understood her, and supported her That's something entirely different. That kind of loss lingers. It stays in the background of her mind no matter how much she tries to distract herself. And the hardest part for her is knowing that this time your silence isn't temporary. This time your distance isn't a tactic. It's a change. It reflects a man who finally put himself first. And she feels that shift. It's why her thoughts keep circling back to you even when she tries to move forward. Because deep down, she knows she didn't lose just a person. She lost the one person who genuinely showed up. And now she feels the full weight of that truth every single day. Your silence was never about winning, hurting her, or proving a point. It was about reclaiming your peace. But in doing so, you created something far more powerful than you realized: space. And in that space, she has been forced to confront the one thing she never expected to face: you without her. When you stepped back, you removed the emotional cushion she relied on, the certainty she assumed she could always fall back on. Your distance created a vacuum, and in that vacuum, growth and accountability began to take shape, not through pressure, but through the natural consequences of her own actions. When you were present, she never had to question herself. Why reflect when you were always the one smoothing things over? Why change when you were always the one adapting? But the moment you went silent, you handed her the responsibility for her own emotional reality. Suddenly, she could no longer distract herself with your presence. She could no longer escape the truth behind her choices. Silence has a way of stripping away illusions, and your silence did exactly that. It exposed what had been buried beneath her ego, her assumptions, and her comfort. She now has to confront the role she played in losing you, and that confrontation is not easy. It's uncomfortable. It's humbling. It forces her to see that her behavior had consequences, that her actions mattered, that the choices she made consciously or unconsciously shaped the outcome. Your distance is not a punishment, it's a mirror, a clear, unfiltered mirror that reflects her own patterns back to her. And whether she admits it or not, that reflection is changing her. She might replay moments in her mind, re-examine decisions she once brushed off, or analyze things she once dismissed lightly. She begins to see the difference between being pursued and being valued, between attention and presence, between temporary affection and genuine consistency. She starts to understand that what you offered wasn't ordinary. It was rare, and it required maturity to appreciate. Silence gives her the room to realize that she had something real and she mishandled it. But here is the deeper truth: this silence doesn't just shape her, it shapes you. By stepping back, you gave yourself the space to remember your worth. You stopped reacting and started observing. You began rebuilding your identity without needing her validation. You created emotional distance not to push her away, but to protect yourself from losing who you were becoming. And that internal shift is what makes your silence so powerful. Your distance creates a balanced environment. It allows both of you to grow, to reflect, and to realign your priorities. And whether she chooses to come back or stay gone, this space ensures you aren't making decisions from desperation or emotional chaos. You are making them from clarity. Your silence is the reset button the relationship never had. It removes noise, demands honesty, and forces everyone involved to show their true intentions. She now has the chance to rise, to take responsibility, and to mature. And if she doesn't, then the silence already did its job. It protected you from giving more of yourself to someone who wasn't ready to meet you at your level. In the end, silence is not closure, it's transformation, and both of you are feeling it in your own way.